So, in chapter 20 of Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo, Dabra finally unveiled his cursed technique, Reversal, Reversed Light. We thought the Lapse technique, turning himself into light itself, was the endgame. But what happens when you reverse the concept of light? You don't just get darkness, you get a void. Visually, the manga portrays this as inverted colors, signifying the complete negation of the visible spectrum. But conceptually, it is a singularity, where information, matter, and energy simply ceases to exist, except for one universal concept. To stop a man who wields the power of light and void, Yuji has to finally awaken the one force, the one power hidden within his body capable of bending them both. We're talking about the anti-gravity system. Now this is a bit more complex. Most people, myself included, assume that Dabura's reversed curse technique would be a shadow. It makes sense, right? Light versus dark. But we all know that JJK always takes the most complex route to get to any conclusion. And in physics, a shadow isn't a thing. You can't project a shadow. You can only block the light, which then casts the shadow. So Dabura's reversal isn't a shadow. It is reversed light. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, if the Lapse version of the ability creates electromagnetic waves that carry energy and information, the reversal must create a field that negates electromagnetic waves. It is an active void. It is a singularity where light cannot exist. To put it simply, we see objects because light bounces off of them and then hits our eyes. The dark ball, for lack of a better term, is invisible in the most terrifying way. You don't see the black sphere coming at you. You see a hole in reality. Your brain can't process the depth or speed of the attack because no light is returning from it. It is a blind spot that kills you. So while a normal shadow has no weight, the reversal of an ability that turns mass into light, which is what the Lapse version of this ability is, effectively turns light into mass. So the reversed light is incredibly, impossibly heavy. It's a super dense region of space. It's not a black hole in terms of gravity yet, but it acts like a physical wall of anti-light. So the consequence for YUJI or anyone this hits is not good, of course. YUJI is extremely powerful and extremely durable. He has tanked hits that would vaporize a special grade, but durability is a measure of how much physical force your body can withstand. This attack doesn't apply force in a traditional sense. It overrides space itself. If Dabra was to hit YUJI with that void, it wouldn't cut him. It would instead delete the space he occupies. It is an erasure of the electromagnetic forces that holds his atoms together. You can't tank a deletion event. You can't simply durability your way out of a void. So how does YUJI counter this? Because he can technically save Yuka if he does intervene and kills Mahoraga. That is because an outside entity partaking in the ritual cancels it. So if YUJI has a change of heart per se, what can he do to save Mahoraga before he then kills him? Well, this takes us back to his mom, Kaori Itadori. But very quickly, if you want to support the channel, don't forget that we have a lot more deep dives into the Modulo timeline coming up, along with some videos analyzing the deep lore of the JJK universe. So if you want to be notified when I post new videos, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Okay, back to the video. Now, we know for a fact that Kenjaku hijacked Kaori's body and used their innate technique, the anti-gravity system. And since Kenjaku, which is kind of funny, is YUJI's biological parent, the question is, does YUJI have this technique? Well, there's one way to go about this, and if someone were to do it, it would be GEGE AKUTAMI. You see, in biology, the idea of dormant traits manifesting later on in life is a real phenomenon, though it usually happens through a thing called epigenetics. Essentially, one's DNA is a massive library of books. Not every book is checked out or read at the same time. Factors like age, extreme stress, or environmental changes can flip biological switches that turn silent genes on. So as an organism that ages, the cellular mechanisms that keep certain genes suppressed can start to degrade. This is often seen in atavism, the occurrence where a creature displays a trait from a distant ancestor, like a human born with a vestigial tail. In the context of this power system and applying this biological logic to Yuji, Gojo Satoru established that a curse technique is typically engraved into the right prefrontal cortex of the brain from birth. However, Yuji is a unique biological vessel created by Kenjaku. While one could say that he did spend his younger years, utilizing shrine from Sukuna and blood manipulation from the dead paintings, his mother's innate technique could have been deep-coded into his soul. And after living for over 84 years, this power could have simply manifested. Also, Mahito and Yuki proved that the soul and body are linked. So by living a very long life, as we know, Yuji might have eventually unlocked the dormant genetic memories of the womb he was created in. So Yuji at this point might already have this power. Or maybe he's going to fight Dabura and awaken it. In either case, the most important factor is how does anti-gravity actually stop Dabura? Well, one thing everyone needs to understand is that like Gojo's Limitless, anti-gravity has a neutral, a lapse, and also a reversal. The lapse, of course, is the forward rotation of the technique. It negates the gravitational pull on a target or the user. This allows for flight, levitation, all that stuff, and the total negation of crushing forces. The best example of this was Kenjaku's survival of Yuki's black hole. Kenjaku activated the lapse using his own body as a domain to functionally disagree with the physics of the singularity. He essentially nullified the effects of the gravity on his own mass, allowing him to exist within the event horizon without being destroyed. Now the reversal of this is the backward rotation, obviously, powered by positive energy. It drastically intensifies the gravitational field in a localized area. Kenjaku used this to crush both Choso and Yuki. So within this zone, per se, the G-force is applied to such a degree that even special grade sorcerers and Shikigami are pinned to the ground, unable to move. So when it comes to which application of the ability would be most useful against Dabura, that would of course be the lapse. As I mentioned before, Dabura's void relies on the concept of shadow given mass. It is a heavy crushing darkness. Yuji can counter this by using the lapse, anti-gravity. And because mass requires gravity to have weight, if Yuji applies the anti-gravity field to the attack itself, he effectively strips it of its mass. He changes the equation of the technique itself. In essence, a shadow given mass without mass is just a shadow. So Yuji turns this ultimate killing move into a harmless poof of smoke. He doesn't block the attack, he doesn't need to. He conceptually diffuses it. He deletes the weight of the attack itself. By the way, anti-gravity would be very useful against Dabura's light speed, and that is because gravity bends light. This is general relativity 101. Light travels in a straight line, but if you put a massive object like a star or maybe a black hole near it, the light curves. The gravity of the object pulls the photons off their path. So by using the reversal of his mother's technique, which would be to create gravity instead of negating it, Yuji can generate an intense gravitational field around his body. He essentially becomes a localized planetary core. So when Dabra tries to speed blitz Yuji, he falls into this gravitational well. And two things then happen. Dabra's visual perspective becomes warped. He aims for Yuji, but Yuji's gravity has bent the light around him. So Dabra punches where he thinks Yuji is, but he's actually punching empty air, because the light carrying Yuji's image has been curved. He becomes a cosmic mirage per se. And the second problem is that intense gravity slows down time relative to the observer. So to Dabra moving at light speed, Yuji appears to be moving normally. But to Yuji sitting inside this heavy gravitational field, the world outside him slows down. So Dabra is forced to interact with curved space-time, effectively making waste of his straight line velocity advantage. Yuji in essence creates a gravity wall around him that acts as the ultimate shield against lasers and light speed kicks. He doesn't need to be faster than light. He just needs to bend the road that the light is driving on. And who knows, maybe he then does a maximum gravity technique to fold Dabra. Anything can happen. I do think this is kind of funny, and someone mentioned it in my comments, but Yuji is kinda like Ichigo from Bleach, right, in a sense. Think about his arsenal. But anti-gravity, that is his mother's gift. it is the only thing that would be truly his by blood right. With that said, my friends, do you think this will happen? Or do you think Dabura has one more evolution, maybe a maximum technique of his light CT, which would be absolutely crazy, but I do see it happen based on what has happened so far. But let me know in the comments below, and until then, peace out.